Jahanache, my name is Garry Oker. I'm here to talk about Indigenous perspective on waste management and my point of view on that. Before we start, I wanted to do a little smudging, and I want to send blessings out to all the participants that are here to listen to what I have to say. I'm really excited that I was asked to do this. It gave me some perspective on our long history of the land and how we are still living here today in the modern context of the world and how we're going to improve the quality of life that we all live. I just want to introduce myself. I'm uh, considered an elder now. I'm 66 years old, so I guess I'm getting to be an old man, but still strong to express myself. I'm a Songkeeper, former chief and counselor. Right now, my present role is creative design director for a multi-million dollar complex cultural center that was built by BC Hydro in our territory here. And my role is really about bridging the ancient intelligence into modern systems and ideas about how to make things better for our people. And I want to honor those that have gone before us, our ancestors, where I learned a lot of the masters, songkeepers, and knowledge holders. It's really interesting that now I could be able to apply it using technology in order to have a different insight, which I will talk in detail about that as we go along. Hello, yes, so now this is the first lessons we're going to put together as a key context around how we're going to look at this waste management. The first one I want to address is the ancestors' intelligence. That's one of our long intelligence of ancestors and what did they have done in the past to look at how they live and how they manage the communities. Then you got your indigenous knowledge is the past based on overall how we are, what is our knowledge, and we put that together, songs or language or those type of things. Then you got your science and technology, which is the latest, greatest stuff like AI coming into play now, and how we're going to use that in order to make things better for the issues that we deal with. That ties us right into the community and youth intergenerational teachings. How do we bring the youth in so that they're a part of the solution or part of them helping a new perspective what they need. That ties us into how that is governance in the communities, such as a band office or municipality, or bigger government on a provincial or federal level. So we got to look at those and how that happens and informs us in the economy of how that environmental issues and partnerships are formed. That's a very important piece because without that, there's no ownership. And I think it's important to understand who owns this, the waste, who owns that. Without that connection, people don't take responsibility. So that's important. How do we put that into creativity and imagination as one of the forms of knowing? Put it all together, a many minds framework that all minds are important, all perspectives are important, put it together, then we can be able to create new opportunities for the future and to ensure that people have some engagement in what we're talking about here. So in this slide here, I want to talk a little bit about the Dane-zaa territory. Who are the Dane-zaa people? They're known as the Beaver Indian people that speak Athabascan Dene. So we are part of the big Dene Athabascan speaking people. That's why we call ourselves Dane-zaa, means real people. And for thousands of years of our ancestors living amongst the seasons and working with animals and always interacting with this having that relationship with the land. Number one is our observation of the land and how things are through the seasonal rounds. Every season is a different way of looking, a new perspective. And having that relationship, once you have that relationship, you have to take responsibility for that relationship. And that's how new ideas are then regenerated for development. So this is how, here we are, 12,500 years of history and stories that link to those type is where I come from, and this is our territory. So we have a massive territory, and we constantly evolve over time. In the past, people lived in 2 seasonal rounds. Today, everybody lives on a community, and there's different relationship and things are formed. That is who we are, Dane-zaa people. So as I mentioned, the Dane-zaa people, what does that mean? So it means that we follow the seasons historically, and even to this day, we always follow the season. Springtime, everybody's excited to get out in the land. New growth coming in, you do observation. So this is really the observation period of time where we look at plants, animals, and change of scenery, animals and water flows. All that is observation. And during the summer, we do the harvesting, getting things ready for celebrations, gatherings, and things like that. In wintertime, it's more about reflective storytelling, singing songs together, and eating the food that we have preserved in the fall. So takes us into the fall, and that's again change, get ready for the winter. So all that is a cycle, following the cycle, the seasons, the movement that creates this balance of how to live with the land. And that's really important to understand as a framework in looking at how we're going to manage the waste and environment. So the main question here is, what is waste? And I think we need to revise the question, what is waste and what begins in that relationship. Waste to me is that when we lose that relationship to things and there's no connection. So then it creates this thing. So if you look at the right side, you'll see the natural system flow, which is really based on people living close to the land, using the land for survival, for peace, enjoyment. All that is part of that. The other side is where excess is thrown away. And I think that's a real culture shift that needs to happen within how we look at the world around us. From extraction to production to consume and then discard is something that's causing this whole thing to work, and we need to relook at that to ensure that how do we make sure we get back to the recycle natural system so that all these products have opportunities to create something new with it. Yeah, so then that leads us into everything has a story. So it goes back to our ancestral way of knowing is, yeah, everything has a story. And when the story disappears, that's when we see waste increases because people don't care anymore. And I think that's the key. Rebranding this whole idea of waste into a storyline that we can understand instead of just consuming it and just throwing it away without any disregard of what is our responsibility. Responsibility is very important. We have to be constantly be reminded by what is our role. As a songkeeper, my responsibility is to ensure that the songs are being used and passed on. I take that responsibility on because there's a story behind that, how we understand and know our place in time and space of how we are going to live in this world. That's important. So let's take a look at the story. Yeah, so the story is about relationship, the steward as a relationship. For generations, ancestors have always taken young people out in the land, and that's one of my favorite things to do. Go out in the land with the young people and show them a few things, and just hope that they enjoy that. And a lot of the young boys or young people that went out, they love going camping and that type of thing. So that's the beginning of recreating the story. How do we look at new ideas and to ensure that they understand that we inherited this land from our ancestors. Here's what they said to us, and here's what we need to do so that the future generation can take it out. So I think the main thing we like to say is that it's all about respect. If we can be able to show respect in the things we do, all the other pieces start to fall into place, and that is becoming the steward of the land and also taking that responsibility on. So that responsibility is that Jinanhata. That it means that this song is alive, or this land is alive. The land is just not a container. The land is a living participant. We were told that all things come together to make sure that we are part of that. Like the big spider web, we're the web of life. I think those type of teachings is so important to build this ecosystem of the mind, that our living relationship is being part of something greater than ourselves. And once we put that into our thinking, the things we do will automatically be considered either recyclable, or is it how we're going to change it to make it something different. So that's important to understand, that life is the Jinanhata. That means that this land is alive. So when we say the Jinanhata, that means that there's no separation. The people and the land and the environment are one system. And we need to understand that in the context of where we live and how we live. I think it's important. So it's not outside, it's not above us, it's always part of something greater than that. And to teach the young people about these things, I think it's important that land, water, and air and people are all one, just at a different time periods and different level of understanding is what makes the opportunity to grow and to learn new way to say that we are part of something greater, not separate. So that's an important piece. Yeah, so if we was to say how and what are we going to do, and we need to look at the problem. What is the problem? Well, the problem today is modern consumption. Everything is at our disposal. You go to Costco and you can buy anything you want. And any of these big stores, you can go in and buy as much as you want. Need it. Even if you don't need it, you'll get to advertisement. Psychologically, people assume that, or may make you want to think you need it. So let's look at it. How do we design with the nature in mind? I think that's an important, critical condition. You'll see a lot of information being thrown at you here today. I'm not going to get into all the details how we do it, but you can see that here, that we need a new design methodology in order to solve this modern consumption. So the question is like, well, how do we do it? Well, we do it by connection to our stories and song and the art. It is those things that help us really see something greater, to make that connection. Why is it important to teach a young person a song? Why is it important to tell them a story? What about the opportunity for them to create? So I come from a world of, a lot of criticism and people always saying this and that. My role now as an elder is to create space for young people and say, hey, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to try things. Express yourself as much as you can. And we give you the permission to do so. It's okay to make a mistake. And I think that is that connection missing, is that when people, today we live in a world of perfectionism. Everything's got to be perfect. While in nature it's not. It's perfect in itself, but the system is always shifting and changing. So we cannot be absolute. And I think that's key. In order to make that connection, you got to have meaning. How is that going to bring meaning into the things that we do? The story has to be inspiring. The song has to be deep within our spiritual connection, and that expression of art and how we do it is critical, that we know that knowledge is about that, having that relationship. So that's an important piece of that connection. So then how do we make that connection? Well, innovation from unexpected places to look at that. Years ago when I saw this whole thing in Brazil, all these people, living in waste, and there they were creating musical instruments and making amazing music. I was totally inspired by that. And that is the innovation mindset that we want. How do we repurpose these wastes that people throw away? The famous line of people saying, other people's waste is someone else's treasure. I think that's the kind of things we want to think about and be inspired by these things and bring those stories out. Because when I mentioned that to other people about these people in Brazil making these amazing instruments, people have never heard about that, which was kind of surprising, because I thought it was one of the most innovative things that people will do. And I believe they've done it out of necessity, because they're poor and they don't know what else to do. So, but then they have the gifts of their ancestors, the songs, the beauty of the rhythms that they have. That is the kind of things I like to see happen throughout our Canadian culture. So yeah, exciting times right now and in the future. So how do this can be reality? I have this thinking about the dreamers philosophy. The dreamers are the ones that can be able to bring ideas from a dream, from spirit, from somewhere, bring it back into reality and make something with it. So I call it bringing dreamer songs into reality. And here's the opportunity for us to really invest. This is where investment has to come in, to look at how we can be able to take discarded the material and then recreate them. So you can see some of the examples on this slide. There's all kinds of great opportunities, and that is the education that needs to happen in every community. It's got to be a workshop for innovation and creativity for communities, and get the young kids involved in recycling, and let's create something new. And if we monetize it in a way that there is a reward, or there is some investment put into creating these products, we're going to start to change and go from waste to opportunities. So waste into opportunities, we had to deal with it with the BC Hydro project. A few years back, we were opposing it. We didn't want it on our territory. But as it evolved, we looked at some of the opportunities that may come from it. But one of the main things was the artifacts. I was really bothered by that. They put all the artifacts found and they just put it in the sea can behind the Settlers Museum. And I said, no, we need to do something more. We need to do something better. So this is the consequences of it, through planting the seed, creating a vision, and getting people to buy into it, and That is what makes something amazing. And this is the architectural drawing where the snowshoe becomes the canopy, the drum becomes the gathering place, the whole building, a square little building becomes this amazing um, uh, cultural architectural design where these stories now become alive with um, interactive exhibits. So this to me is an example where it doesn't just have to be one piece. It could be something that adds a whole new value to it. And I mentioned to Hydro that they're in the business of creating electricity, and Indigenous people needs the responsibility to hold the cultural artifacts and showcase, implementing Article 31, which is connection to our ancestors' artifacts, and then what we're going to do to create something new so that visitors from all over the world will come and see how we have negotiated with the corporation to make something better for the future. So, and then what do we do? Today, we are in the world of AI and modern technology where we can innovate and have respect for one another, make these connections, protect what's important, and other things that we can re-evolve into something new and share that. The quality of this means that we can be able to take modern context, industrialization of a river, of a land, and then turn it into something beautiful so that people can then repurpose themselves into knowing that. So technology is the tool, so our ancestors have, the first example of technology was a piece of wire. When our ancestors saw this wire and how flexible it is, they adopted it immediately, and they said, this is a good tool. We like this piece of wire. Now we can use it for setting up snares for animals, tie things together, or build things with it. The same thing is happening. Just like our ancestors at that time when they had bow and arrows, and then a gun was introduced, immediately they see the value of this new technology. And today, this is what we're talking about. How do we take this new AI and modern technology of exhibits and things that we can put together in order to create new perspective and new learnings? And it's so exciting. This is the most exciting time of Indigenous and technology coming together. And a lot of this technology actually is going to help save some of the problems that we're running into when it comes to waste management. So then this gives me the hope. The teachings are still alive. We just need to ensure that the things we understand, we inherited this earth from our ancestors. And now we got to take it and build something and retrain the younger youth to say, let's take the best examples from our ancestors and then create something new that can make a better quality of life. Just like our ancestors have adopted over time with technology, but still practicing traditional activities such as harvesting on the land, but only taking what they need, not over a what do you call the over assumption. Taking more than you need is not the way of being. It's actually against the nature. Just like nature doesn't, the river doesn't flow backwards. It always goes forward. It has to have a purpose. And this is what gives me a hope that these teachings are still there, and we just need to make it something new. So those are some of the things that I reflected on as I look at the questions. What are we leaving behind is the main question. If we're going to look at the waste management and environment, we've always known that we need to leave it better than how we found it. And today, because of the knowledge of how and what other people are doing all over the world, that we can come together in a circle to express these innovative ideas that give choices to our people so that they have what their action is reflected through their values. What they believe in is true, what is right, what is hopeful. And our stories are the ones that's going to put it into a right context. And then by coming together, we'll create a better future for the future of the generation not even born yet. And that's, they call it 7 generations. We always got to think back that far in order to think, what are we going to do today? Yeah, so, the question is, how do we reframe what's happening in our lives today? So let's take a look at the question, have a thought about this. What if waste management was viewed as untapped potential? What possibilities can happen here? I think we need to really question that and say what we can do to get people involved to see beauty in what's discarded. So that means reimagining how we do it, create new projects, pilot projects, small ones in the community. Just a simple thing as, getting kids to recycle, and then at the same time, get them to build something with it. What do the elders need, for example? What can we do to repurpose things that is thrown away and rebuild them for somebody else to use? So the idea then is to look at recovering ideas from that, to rethink it through, repurpose, and regenerate. So those type of opportunities are there, and we just need to have investment in order to get people to buy into the community, or obviously the community need to buy into it based on rethinking what are the waste that we put out can be repurposed in a way that will make a new life better. So that's number one question, and I want you guys to reflect on that as we move along here. Yeah. So then, as I mentioned before, our ancestors always told stories, and stories is what make connection. So today we want to think about that. What stories are missing from all the products we use? How do we put the meaning back into it? And I think that's is an important thing to do, because forever in recent time in history, we've been just with no connection to anything that we have. So, but when Indigenous people think about what is important to us, and once we get into that framework, all of a sudden things are going to change because we want to do it. There are corporations that are doing it. I've seen even Starbucks have put stories onto their cups. That's a good example. And there's a lot more out there that started to really bring context into the actual product itself, so that people can have meaning to it, or using colors, different things like that. I think it's important that we look at the stories that we are using for the products, and make it more visible, more learning, development of all those things, and then even just create a scale of learning and development at a different level, right? From elementary level all the way to, university level. So we can do that together. I think it's important. These stories need to be put back into these products. So another question is really about, how can we take Indigenous knowledge and modern technology? Can it really work together? I believe it can. I think we can be able to do that, but the main thing has got to be human-centered. How can we be able to ensure that the human values guide the technology in order to create these new things? Today, we have so many opportunities in multiple ways, everything from collecting water to cultural and language and sustainable innovation solutions like the sun, and the land, and how we can be able to grow new soil based on what we've known and what other people have been doing. But together we can be able to create indigenous knowledge, such as the creative intelligence of our ancestors. Ancestors' intelligence is also very important in that it creates this balance about how are we going to live, and what is the expression of that living. I think even the AI, I've been using it to make music, and it's really, really exciting because I'm able to create new stuff in really short time. And I think that's what we can be able to test things really quick and then come up with the best solution and then go with that. That now becomes a community program and investment opportunities to turn it into a business thing for the community members to get involved. And I think if we did that, indigenous knowledge and modern technology can guide a new way of looking at the waste. Yeah, so that ends, some of the ideas that I'm shared with you. So in my closing, I just want to say that it can be done. We can work together to think outside the box and figure out what we can do to make something better. Sustainable community means that people have an opportunity to make a living. And I think if we can also provide those kind of investments, that community members can be an entrepreneur to build things for communities, people will take responsibility, because knowledge and traditional way of being is about taking responsibility. And that story must provide us something that we care about. The question would be, what are we willing to stand up for? Are we willing to stand up for the land? Yes, there's a lot of indigenous community don't want destruction. They want natural system. So, but then how do we use technology to help the similar ideas in that? So Mini Minds is really about having all these different ideas and mindsets that can come together to create a problem. Get everybody on the same page. And I think that's the key thing, because if you have too many conflicting entities and organizations vying for their own survival, then they're not open to giving younger people an opportunity. This corporate structure has always been about extracting traditional knowledge. It's only good till the project starts. And once the project starts, traditional knowledge keepers are no longer required. But all the other professional services, lawyers, consultants, all the accountants, everybody else kicks in, and they have jobs where indigenous people are left behind. That is the main issue regards of sustainability within the community. We are naturally born to care for the land because that's the story we were told. Today, we need to ensure that we're part of the economic system. And without that economic system, it doesn't work. The story ends because we're no longer included. So I encourage you to reach out to ensure that you can continue this conversation. I'm also available to do workshops within your own group so that we can actually solve the problem, because everybody has a different issue they need to deal with. But the idea is that we're going to come together to Mini Minds to build a place where everybody, ideas and concepts can come together to address the waste management. I don't like that, waste management. It's about repurposing the land space and the things that we consume so that we can be able to have a new perspective. So thank you very much for inviting me to share. Hopefully the things that I've said to you will give you an opportunity to reflect so that you can have respect for yourself and for others. There's a relationship being built, and then we can restore new ways to be living on the land. Thank you. Wuchong. Anish Jesa.
Hajo sakichile, donche hasatle, natsimetele chabake, hajo dane ke wonche ujo sa wonche ujo sa wonche. Olia di teschi, guea che wisa ujo sa wonche ujo sa wonche. Ha 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 ha. Zechi, gweti atagutechi, gwe o hanasanujo, saonche.